Good morning, and thank you all for coming. Welcome to our second annual career panel featuring members of our corporate affiliates program, hosted by the CE Graduate Student Advisory Council in partnership with the CE Undergraduate Student Advisory Council. If you are unfamiliar with CAP or the Corporate Affiliates Program, this is a program designed to provide meaningful engagement between CE students and industry partners. So you can find CAP partners hosting days in the lobby in the Mason building and hosting tables at the CE Career Fair. Today's event will consist of a 1 hour Q&A session followed by a 1 hour lunch. We do encourage you to stay for lunch and ask our CAP partners any additional questions that we do not cover here. Now I would like to introduce today's panel. First, we have Kerrie Boyette from KCI Technologies. Next, we have James Jones from Uzun+Case. Then we have Christian Paul from Gilbane, Morgan Nesmith from Berkel and Company, and lastly, Mallory Atkinson from Shear Structural. Welcome, panelists, and thank you so much for joining us today. So without further ado, let's get started with our questions. We will be alternating between questions from the Undergraduate Student Advisory Council and questions from the Graduate Student Advisory Council. So Nina, if you would like to get started.
Yeah, so one undergraduate question. I know myself and many other students who are approaching their senior year are looking at working full-time for companies. What would you say, Mallory and Morgan, are kind of some of the qualities that you look for in new hires?
I think for us at Shear Structural, one of the qualities we look for is honestly a positive attitude. We know coming out of Georgia Tech that you all have a wonderful educational background. And so we know that you have that, but we aren't quite sure about maybe your professional experience yet. Hopefully you've had an internship. That's, of course, we look to make sure you've had some kind of professional experience before. Maybe it has been in structural, maybe it's just been in civil, but we want to make sure that you're coming to us with a attitude of like, I want to learn, I want to grow, how can I help the team? And that's really important for us.
I think I would reiterate a lot of that, and this is not a joke. It's be on time. Just be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, and be curious. Because, as she said, you have a great base, but it's going to be the learning curve is going to be how that base translates to practical application, and you're going to be learning all of that. My expectation is none of that. So that's fine. That's exactly where you should be. And that's where the being curious comes in. So that's really it. That positive attitude that Mallory mentioned, be on time, where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, and just be curious about what you're doing and take it all in.
Okay, thank you, Morgan. From the graduate questions, the first one is directed towards Kerrie and Mallory. What was the most challenging part of your transition from an academic environment to a work environment? And because I know that you guys are GT alumni, what is one experience or opportunity at Georgia Tech that you found especially helpful in preparing you for industry?
Okay, I have the mic, so I'll go first. At Georgia Tech, I think the biggest thing that helped me prepare for my career was the push to get an internship every single summer. And so I really was focused on getting as much work experience as I could. And I actually got my work experience in construction, which is my degree, but now I'm a partner at a structural engineering company. But what that really taught me was that's what I did not want to do. And so I found a love for the industry, but I did not want to be on a job site every day. So for me, getting that internship experience really helped me figure out what I did not want to do. And Georgia Tech at that time was, I still think it is very career focused and as many opportunities as you can to interact with professionals at events like this, at the career fair, through internships is wonderful. And I would encourage you to do that as often as possible.
what you said about internships is huge. So go out and try and do different things and learn about the different areas, because sometimes what you see in school is not the same as what you see in practice. I thought I also wanted to be a structural engineer and I was in that track and I got through senior design and
Hiring, Kerrie. You want to?
I'm in transportation, so I do work with structural engineers. I'm in the transportation market and doing roadway design, and I only had one roadway class when I graduated. We were in tracks at that time, and I had one. So get as much experience as you can on the intern side and try different things to see what you like. I think one of the other really great things you learn here is time management. You have a lot of deadlines, and how you manage your time is really important once you get out into the industry too, when you have different deadlines across different clients and different projects, and how you manage your different deadlines, I think is really important, and when to ask for help.
All right, so kind of flipping back to the undergraduate side, so question Kerrie. So how did you kind of end up in your current position? So I know a lot of people, think of civil engineering as very linear path, but did you try other things and internships before you started that kind of helped to guide you into one specific area? Did you try other things within your company that kind of led you to the position that you fill currently?
Sure, I'll go first. So similar to Kerrie and Mallory, I did internships. My background is in civil engineering, but through internships, I determined that I wanted to do construction, right? Unlike the folks on here on the panel. And so I think, go back to your question for me, please.
Yeah. So basically, like, how, from your experience doing internships, from trying other things, were you kind of led to your current position doing
Yep.
construction media
Got it.
design?
So I did civil engineering. I had multiple internships. My first internship actually was in transportation. I did an internship working in hydrology. And my last internship was in construction, in which I did a co-op. I took a semester off and utilized that time to really get some experience and understand what I really wanted to do. That last internship allowed me to build a forensic lab and get some really hands-on, boots on the ground, no pun intended, experience. And from that, I determined I wanted to take my civil engineering education through construction. And I've been in construction since. Never really dabbled in civil engineering, but we were just talking, I've worked in my career with each of these firms in what I do on a day-to-day basis.
So I talked a little bit about, I thought I wanted to be a structural engineer. And then when I graduated, the market was okay, but not great. And I got an offer in transportation and I took it, and I went in with a really open mind, which I think is really important too, about where your opportunities are. And I went in knowing very little about transportation and did a lot of learning. And if you had asked me in the early days of my career, I would have told you that I wanted to do technical design my entire career. So be open to new opportunities would be my advice. I would never have guessed I would be where I am today, looking back when I graduated. So on the roadway side, we get to work with a lot of different disciplines, even within civil and outside of it. So I get to work with the structural engineers when we have a bridge on the project. The roadway usually leads. So I get to work with traffic, and I get to work with geotechs and surveyors, and then people outside of civil also. So we work with a lot of environmental people too. So the environmental planners for NEPA, because we usually have federal funding, and ecologists and historians and all that. I actually manage part of our environmental team now, and I have no environmental background. So I would say just be open to new experiences, and your journey may change as you go through your path, and what your goals are may change, and be open to that.
Thank you. So this question is for James and Morgan. In your view, what is one area where our engineering education could be stronger, and how can graduate students compensate for or address that gap?
One opportunity. Good, thank you. One opportunity that I think you can build on beyond the experience that you're getting at Georgia Tech are honing your writing skills. There's so much technical content that you have to absorb in the curriculum. I understand there's not much opportunity to work in the writing elements to keep that developed, but you're going to be writing as much as you're developing technical content through the course of your career. Field reports, conditions assessments, those are just two examples for what we see in the structural world. As you advance in your career, you're going to be writing proposals and interacting with the clients on the business side as well. And so that's definitely something that that you're going to want to make sure you've got that skill captured and hone that through the course of your career.
I think along with that, it's some of those skills that were alluded to that are not necessarily technical, along with the writing, overall general communication, whether it's being comfortable public speaking or just speaking in a meeting, and then your soft skills interacting with other people. Because when I came out of school, I was just going to be an engineer, right? So all I wanted to do was design, design, design. But the reality is, you interact with other members of the design team. You interact with the construction team when you're communicating back and forth about your design was okay, but it's not really feasible to construct. So let's make some adjustments. And so there's a lot of back and forth that you get into with, again, how you communicate with other team members, and both written and verbally, I would say.
So bouncing back to an undergrad question. So James and Christian again. So what qualities were maybe you not looking for in a company originally when you were starting to find where you wanted to start, but is something now that you look back and think, this is a quality in my company that I couldn't live without? You know, I think a lot of people focus on, oh, I want to make as much money out of school, I want the best benefits package. But were there other things, maybe like company culture or other things that stand out that really just make your work more sustainable and just something that you love to do?
I will say early in my career, I was always focused on the title and just like how I appeared and having the power. You know, how quickly can I get the title of being a project manager or managing multiple people? I remember at a point in my career where I thought it was a huge accomplishment that I got a chance to manage the money and the cost of the project, the budgets and things like that. But now, after being 20 years in my career, where I get to manage all of those things, lots of people, you know, expensive budgets, things like that. I think I've found that the most important thing within my career is the culture. And the culture could be broken down into several categories. It's the culture of the company that you work for. Do they have the same values? Do they appreciate who you are as an individual? It's the culture of the individuals that you get a chance to either manage, your colleagues within the industry. Do they have the same integrity? It's the culture of your clients that's super important at this point in my career. Not all projects we want, not all projects we want to work on or, you know, work with those clients. And then for me, it's, am I working? What's important for me at Gilbane is they allow me to do this, right? I get a chance in the middle of my day to come to Georgia Tech and teach a course, participate on panels, mentor students, and that giving back. And so the culture that allows me as a human to feel satisfied, because we're always going to work. We're going to work for 45 years. We're going to make money. We're going to lose jobs. We're going to win jobs. But are you satisfied from a human factor? I think at this point in my career is most important.
110%, I agree with you on that. You are starting down a path that's going to lead you professionally for the rest of your life. So find a company that fits the way you operate, that you can work with them in the same way that they're going to be working with you. We work on a team basis. There are other companies and roles and responsibilities that might be more individual, where you'll be working singly, and so you know your own working style and how you thrive. So be thinking about all the aspects of how you think and how you personally operate and succeed in the Georgia Tech environment, and then look for somewhere that has a model in a similar way, and find the right fit.
Thank you. So for Christian and Mallory, thinking about your own journey, what skills have been most critical for thriving in this industry, both in terms of technical expertise and people skills?
Oh, I'm not technical, so I'll just talk on the rest of it. For me, the most important skill that I have learned in my career is building relationships. You always want to build a relationship before you need it. Relationships will do more for you in your career than, in my opinion, any sort of technical skill. They could land you a job you are totally unqualified for. They could get you more money. They could win you a project that you're totally unqualified for, but that you have a lot of fun doing. So really building the relationships, and it starts here in this room with the people that you're sitting with. You will be shocked, especially if you stay in Atlanta, how many of these people in this room you will interact with for here on out through the rest of your career. And having somebody that you can be like, hey, maybe you mess up on a project, and you can call somebody that you can be like, hey, we messed up, but like, what can we do to make it better? Or you're like, hey, I really want to get this job. I see that you work there. What can I do? Building those relationships will single-handedly do more for your career than anything else.
I 100%, I 100% agree. I'm 20 years from you guys' seat, and it's amazing that gentlemen I worked with fresh out of college, I still work with today. We're just in a different role. We were both, working overnight in boots and hard hats doing, mechanical piping tie-ins, and now we're executives at the same companies. Relationships by far are more important than frankly any technical skill, because we're always learning. We're always picking up new technical skills every single week. There's no one here that isn't learning something new every week. I would say 100% agree with what Mallory has said. I think the statistic is like 80% of jobs, not out of school, but as you grow in your career, are based on referrals and people you know. And the fact is, people want to work with people they know, they trust, and they like, because then we can pick up the phone and say, hey, I have a problem, or hey, you messed up, but how can we fix this, because of the relationship. I think that, and then also finding mentorship and allyship within whatever industry or company that you're at. You won't believe, a lot of times those allies are the ones that are speaking up for you behind closed doors, especially earlier in your career, and they can help you. But that again goes back to the industry relationships for sure. Atlanta is a very big city, but construction is a very small town. I only know Mallory from Georgia Tech. I've never met the other folks here, but we literally have all worked, our firms have worked together just in the last year. So.
Jumping back to the undergraduate side, so Morgan and Mallory, this is a more specific question, but so the economy, especially for construction, is always going to kind of ebb and flow through certain sectors and certain types of work. How can you prepare yourself, especially you think as a young engineer, to weather through times when the market may not be as strong in a specific market? Whether that's through diversifying your skill set, making sure you're a jack of all trades. Is there anything that comes to mind with that specifically?
Well, I graduated in 2008. It was the best time ever to graduate in this industry. I think it taught me a lot to come out. I mean, I had 2 job offers pulled from like even consideration before I even made a decision. I had many people that I graduated with that never even got job offers. I think there was something crazy, like the people who graduated, I graduated in like May of 2008, the summer class of construction, which had like 12 graduates, had 0 job offers in the industry. So it was like really scary times. And so that was when I learned that yes, diversifying obviously your skills, obviously building relationships, but really just being, I think somebody mentioned it earlier, open-minded and saying yes. I mean, I started my career, I got a job doing marketing for a civil engineering company with a construction degree. And I was like, well, I'm just gonna like try this and like see what it's like. And it had that decision has really informed my career and landed me to co-found a structural engineering company. So really being open-minded and being curious and asking those questions and developing those relationships and staying diversified in my skills, but also honing some of those skills that I really felt that I was better at than others, if that makes sense. So.
And I agree with a lot of that. And I think I wouldn't so much go with the jack of all trades necessarily. It's hard to be very competent in a large different or a variety of skills like that, but you can at least be aware of them and what they entail and be open to dabbling in them as those opportunities come along. I would go back to something that I think Mallory had touched on earlier, and that's relationships. I would offer that one of the mistakes that I made early in my career was I took things very personally. And I would venture to say that 99% of they're not even disagreements, they're decisions that are made that maybe weren't in my favor or whatever, or a design that wasn't accepted that has nothing to do with personal. And you'll get a lot further developing your relationships if you realize that everybody's a little bit different, their motivations are different, what they're trying to get out of a project might not be the same as what you're trying to get out of the project, or there are reasons that you might not be aware of that are decisions are being made to go in a certain direction on a project, and that has nothing to do with you personally. And I think that's one of the best ways that you can build those relationships is by understanding that and being accommodating to sort of understanding where other people are coming from and why those decisions are being made, and being able to go with that as opposed to just, I mean, I used to pout, just like, this is the best idea ever. Why can you not see this? And I have actually been told in meetings, this was a great idea. We're not going to do that. And I was very young at the time and I was just flabbergasted. But there were a bunch of reasons, risk tolerance, that I had no idea of why, that they would make a different decision. So learning how to build those relationships through that sort of outlook, I think, is critically important when times come that you may want to call on those relationships.
I will amend my decision to never burn any bridges. Goes back to relationship building. But as Christian said, this is a very small, big town. And there are people who even like in the internship process have burned bridges on their way out. And that is just, you have no idea where anybody's going to land. They might not even stick in engineering. They might go to the client side. And if you burn a bridge, they will remember you and you will never, ever, ever get work or a job or whatever. So don't burn bridges.
And it also took me a long time to learn, even within the company that I work for, if you may feel like you have a good idea of how to improve something that the company does, that may not be high on the priority list of that company. And if you continue to harp on that, you will become the person who is harping on the thing that this person does not want to hear about because they have other priorities. They're aware of the problem. You've made them aware of the problem. And so it's, again, realizing that not everybody has the same perspective, or that there are other perspectives, just bigger pictures than just what you happen to be working on at that time. So.
Okay, thank you. So Kerrie and James, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing your field in the near future, and how does it differ from the challenges professionals faced in the past?
So we are all trying to figure out what AI is and where it's going to take us. Are we all just headed for the matrix? In engineering, there are professional moral topics that go alongside the development of our technical work. So figuring out how we will be able to harness AI and use that in a constructive way that makes our work better and still balance the professional ethics side of the equation. So we're struggling with what that means in our organization and how we are going to best incorporate that. AI is a tool that is going to is changing how everyone does their work. So just that's that's one of our great unknowns.
I would add that AI is a discussion that we're having too on exactly what you said on the ethics. But I also think that it's not necessarily a new discussion. AI is a newer term, but we've had discussions for a long time as we've created tools to make things easier on the technical side. Are we losing the ability to know what is a reasonable answer? You know, we've had that discussion for a long time when we create these crazy spreadsheets and then you have new grads come in and they say, well, I just put these numbers in and this is what I got out. So this must be right. And they don't learn the background piece of knowing when your answer is reasonable. And I think that discussion just continues with AI of, well, I gave it that information is what I'm, and they don't know, is that a reasonable answer? Do I need to dig in more? Maybe I put in bad numbers and I didn't know that. So I think it's just a continued discussion of being able to know, I got this answer and what do I do with it? And could I do a really quick calculation on a scratch pad and come up with a number that's in the ballpark just to justify? Because we don't want to be completely reliant on AI. But that's a big discussion we're having right now.
All right, now back to the undergraduate side. So Morgan and Christian, how would you say, I guess specifically maybe the Atlanta market compares to your company's markets around the country in terms of growth, in terms of job markets? I know a lot of undergraduate students consider maybe moving outside of Atlanta. If you have any experience going to other offices and getting to talk with other people, kind of what has been the perspective for how the Atlanta market compares to other places?
Okay. So Gilbane, we have over 25, 30 offices throughout the country. And I'm focused here, Georgia, South Carolina. However, I have done research as a part of my leadership program at Gilbane. And really the data and the facts show that since COVID to today, frankly, Atlanta is the place to be. And not just because we want to keep you here for our firms, but when you look at population growth and migration, people are moving to the Southeast. When you look at how we carry through COVID and just our overall economy from a federal state standpoint, we have maintained great strength in our economy as it compares to, say, the Northwest or the Northeast. And frankly, South Carolina and some cities and towns in North Carolina and parts of Florida and Georgia are growing at a rate that's incredible. So from my perspective and just the research I've done and how we talk as a company, frankly, the Southeast is growing, and our company is investing into our offices to ensure that we can keep up with the demand. I've lived in other parts of the country, but I mean, that's been over several years, New York and Texas, Midwest. But I will say that Atlanta and the Southeast is the strongest region from the construction standpoint, in my knowledge.
Full disclosure, I'm a designer, but I also work for a construction company. So that's my perspective is very similar in that we're headquartered in Kansas City. Atlanta, it has been our largest revenue generator, and that covers from Louisiana through the Carolinas and Tennessee and Florida. Sort of stops at North Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, that sort of area north. And that has been for so long that we internally refer to Atlanta as the beast that feeds the machine, because there are a lot of things going on in the Southeast in terms of development. And so that's a lot of opportunity in terms of design and construction. But having said that, outside of a interesting strip sort of west of Kansas-ish, so getting into Colorado, Wyoming, we do a lot of projects nationwide. And it kind of depends on what you want to get into. So I happen to be in a work for a foundation company that does a lot of products that are very well suited to the geologies here in the Southeast. But if you were looking at landslides or other types of, let's say, geotechnical hazards, you might find more opportunities in the out in the West, say in the Rockies area, Rocky Mountain areas where we don't do a lot of work because geologies are not as suited for our products. But by and large, yeah, the Southeast region is a large economic center in the U.S. in terms of development right now. So,
And I mean, Georgia Tech is a huge driver for Atlanta. Georgia Tech brings in the research. You know, we have a huge medical hub here, and that some of the key businesses that we have here in Atlanta is driving multiple industries to come here to the Atlanta and the Southeast. So.
Okay. And I guess this last question is just directed towards whoever wants to answer. But if you could say one thing to a graduate or even undergraduate student about to begin their career, what would it be? And it would be great if you could weigh in on the hiring process and what your perspective is as, when you're hiring someone. So if you could weigh in on that too, that would be awesome.
So one of my pieces of advice to college kids is to take your EIT, please, before you graduate or right as you're graduating. If you don't do it, it's just going to get harder. Especially a lot of the EIT material is what you do in your first years of college, and you will forget that if you wait 5 years after you graduate. And now they've decoupled the PE too, so you can now take the PE exam earlier than waiting until you have all of your experience. So we're seeing people go ahead and take that PE before they've met the experience level and go ahead and get that out of the way. Recruiting wise, I would say make sure you're applying for the right positions, the things you're interested in. Make sure you go look at the companies online and see what they do before you interview with us so that you at least have an idea, but also be open to learn. And when you come, be chatty with us. And it's okay to say that you don't have a lot of experience, and that's okay. But tell us about how you want to learn and how you want to grow, but you're open-minded, I think would be my advice on the hiring process.
I would say try to find leadership opportunities where you are today. There's an opportunity to grow your leadership skills in whatever you're interested in, whether it's the program, different student organizations on campus, it could be religious, etc. But that experience helps you to gain confidence. It helps you to be able to learn how to communicate and work with people and just understand what it is to lead. That is a huge quality coming out of school. While you may not have that technical experience working in the fields, having the ability to lead, it makes you stand out for sure.
I think I would reiterate being open to, or just being able to say yes to opportunities, being open to opportunities. I am often somewhat pessimistic by nature and can immediately jump to why I wouldn't want to do something. But having the mentality of being open to trying something that I wasn't necessarily planning on doing as part of my career has been extraordinarily beneficial. From going back to my graduate school time here at Georgia Tech, I was given a stipend, but only if I worked on a very specific research project, which I thought I had no interest in. But it ended up dealing with a lot of data acquisition at the time, computer data acquisition, which ended up being a critical component in what I ended up doing later and taking another opportunity in a way that I never could have seen coming. And so I just took that opportunity because it was an opportunity to go to grad school here. And it paid off in dividends that I could not, or ways that I could have never seen coming. I've had, I guess, discussions with colleagues who went on a temporary assignment to a place that they didn't particularly want to go for 6 weeks or 6 months, but they learned so much because of the out of the ordinary nature of that project that they quickly progressed more than their peers because they had that level of experience. So yeah, I think being open to the opportunities that present themselves, and it's just that mentality of, sure, I will try anything once to figure out if I you know, if that's really what I want to be doing or not, because you're going to end up getting experiences that you will not see coming that will prove to be hugely beneficial for you.
I'm just going to reiterate, make relationships before you need them. They will do wonders for you. And in terms, and I think another thing that I've noticed, have we all been at our companies for a really long time? Like really long, 20, yeah. So something in terms of like maybe for your next job after you get that first job is something that we do look at on resumes is like, how often are you job hopping? Are you just job hopping to get a bigger paycheck? Like loyalty will pay off just the same way a relationship pays off. Like we will give you the ultimate flexibility. We'll bend rules. We will, bend policies when we trust you and your work ethic. And so you can see 5 people up here who have been with their companies a really long time, and it's rewarding. So I'm seeing a lot of, not students, but again, like recent, like early career people who are 4 years out of their, graduating, and they've had 3 jobs. Like, what does that say about you? That says you haven't seen a whole cycle in a business. That says you can't take it. Like, that doesn't say wonderful things. And I have heard from some of our interns that TikTok career advice tells you to just like, get another job to get more money, and more money is not always worth it. So the best companies don't always pay the best, but they can be the best places to work. So just a little tangent on that. And then for recruiting, I'm on a 1-woman crusade to bring back thank you notes, please. Thank you, please. I don't know what happened. I used to be on a 1-woman crusade to bring back handwritten thank you notes. I don't think that's ever going to happen again. But I will say, like, just an email to thank me for my time after interviewing you would really be great. And I don't know what happened, but like people don't follow up or ever say thank you. And so it's this weird thing that's happening. It goes a long way. We actually talk about it internally. So it's just nice to like know that you're interested. And, sometimes we'll be like, we'll wait a week to see if they even are interested in us and follow back up. So thank you notes. Relationships.
I haven't heard the networking question yet, so I'll pepper that in here because it does seem to fit the question. Networking it doesn't have to be an aggressive task, but certainly stay in touch. There are professional organizations that you can get involved in. Many of them have young member groups, so you can find people around your age and experience. Don't be afraid of the people in the corner offices. We look busy, and sometimes we are. So know how to temper your schedule. I can remember being absolutely mortified by Tamer using one of our namesakes. I was like, I'm not allowed to talk to him, but please talk to us. We're here. We want to engage with you, get to know you. It's a win-win for the company when you get to build these connections and build your experience. And lastly, networking is just looking to your left and your right now. Someone mentioned that earlier on the panel. I think back to my grad school days and where we are now. One of Mallory's co-partners was a best friend that I made the very first class that I sat in Georgia Tech, and Karen Jenkins was sitting next to me. And it's like, oh, hey, who are you? And here we are 30 something years later. There's one of the concrete professors at Georgia Tech that I did all of my research with in grad school. Another one of the large structural firms in town that's one of our chief rivals. 2 of their principals sat in my graduate program together. So lean on each other, get to know each other, and as you bring yourself along, lean on your friends to help bring you along as well, and feel free to reach out and help them at the same time. I like the comment on career fair. Do a little bit of homework before you go in. You know who's going to be there. Do a little research. Find a small firm that you don't know by name, but maybe they're in your field of interest, and use that as an opportunity to get to know someone that you're not aware of. Berkel's going to have a line a mile long, and they'll know how to service it because everybody in geotech knows Berkel. But I get outside the Georgia Tech realm and no one knows Uzun+Case, and it makes me sad that there are qualified candidates that I'm never going to get a chance to talk to because they didn't do their homework and they don't know who we are, so they just keep walking right by.
Thank you. And as a follow-up to my last question, do you guys have any specific advice for PhD students who want to consider industry after their PhDs?
I think it depends on what you want to do in the industry. Again, this is specific to, I am a designer who works for a construction company, and someone who, we have a couple of people who do a lot of high-end computer modeling. That is not very common. Most of what I do is, I would say, melding my technical expertise with what I've learned about the construction process. And it's not just sitting behind it doing a lot of, again, this high-end computer modeling and nothing else. I don't know what the space or the availability for that is in the space. So I think it's a recognition that you have some great skills as someone who's gotten a PhD, and you probably know as much or more about what you did your thesis on than most people in the world. But that's a very narrow band of application. Somebody once asked me, they said, "Hey, it sounds like you're kind of an expert in auger cast piles." And I said, probably, but you're talking about a niche within a niche within a niche. I mean, we've gone from civil engineering to geotechnical engineering to foundation design to one very specific type of foundation, right? So that doesn't necessarily translate to just a ton of demand outside of a particular aspect of the industry where I've kind of fit in. So I think it's being aware that even with that level of accomplishment, you're still going to need to broaden from that scope if you want to be in the industry. Anybody?
I totally agree. It's if you decide to go a non-academic track, there are places in the design community for PhDs. Absolutely. We have 2 PhDs in the Uzun+Case staff, and they work mainly on our highest level of technical difficulty in the analytical side of what we do. Be flexible, get out and find an organization that has room for your talents and is going to know how to best engage those talents and then keep you interested through the course of your career.
Okay, thank you. And I think I'll ask the audience if anyone has any specific questions that they want to ask right now.
Do I need a mic or can I just?
Oh, you are.
Thank you guys for coming and speaking to us today. I heard it mentioned that when it comes to internships, get as much experience as possible. But then when it comes to the full-time experience, loyalty is key. Would you say that loyalty aspect also applies to internships?
It can if it's the right fit for you and for the company. Certainly, if you are trying to decide where you want to be, what structural track and how you want to focus your career, then it's great to get out and try a host of different areas with your internships. If you know what track you're interested in, then that's an opportunity to either try out several firms that are in that niche, or if things work out with a firm, then it's great to go ahead and start building that relationship. I've got a recent hire who interned at 3 different places, 3 different structural firms in town, and I think it was great for them to see how different structural firms approach the design community. And at the same time, I have a young lady that started full-time in August who started interning with us at the start of her sophomore year and continued all the way through the master's program. So we found a great relationship together, and it's, she's starting right out of school with 4 years of experience almost. It was a great runway for her. So really depends on where your interests fall and the comfort level that you find in organizations.
And from our experience, we've had a couple of cases where the fit, both from the person's perspective, the intern's perspective, and our perspective was like, this is working. This is great. And I would have been disappointed had they not come back full time, because it was so clear that they just were great and a great addition, and that we were a great place for them to thrive. Those were both graduate level interns, so a little more focused within civil engineering on what they were going to be specific about, and kind of knew the direction that they were headed. As an undergrad, I don't think I would have any expectation the same sort. It's just you're still in that process of trying to figure out, even within civil, what branch of civil do you, it's so broad. And so I don't think I would look askew at trying new, different types of things and trying to get that level of experience.
And I can add on to that. Just make sure that you're honest about, hey, I want to try something else that you don't have. Or you can even say, I want to try something else that your firm has, and we can help you find that. And then maybe you go try that other thing and you don't like it as much, then we could hire you as a new grad. But don't burn your bridges either. I know Mallory mentioned that earlier. Don't burn your bridges. We had a student from here accept an internship a couple of years ago, and then right before it started, he sent us an email. I'm sorry, I can't. Have family issues. Well, turns out he took a job with one of our teaming partners here in town. And then when he graduated, he applied for a full-time position with us. So that happens too. And we'll remember that and we'll go, we liked him when we interviewed him, but is he going to be loyal? And we don't know the answer to that. And then I'll add to, my firm has a rotational program for new graduates. So new graduates come in, and for a year, we work with you, and you get to go to 4 different groups and try out the different groups and spend 3 months with them. And then at the end of your rotation, we'll talk with you about which ones you liked, and hopefully you'll get to join the one you liked the most at the end. But that's another opportunity for students who didn't try all the different things they might like to try, and then they can do that as a new grad and during that first year. Because what we don't want to do is hire a new grad and then they realize 6 months in, this is not where I want to be. So we really like the internship, so you've at least tried it to make sure you're in the right area or gone through our rotational program.
Yeah, I was going to add, I think it's not just about like that intern that rescinded their offer, because we've actually had that first time in my career. I've always been a part of the hiring process since I graduated. So 20 years of hiring. And in the past 3 years, I guess since COVID, probably we've had people renege on job offers. I mean, some of them like the day before. And it's not just about like, that doesn't show that you're loyal. That shows that you're not trustworthy. And you talk about building relationships. The first way to build a relationship is to show that you're trustworthy. So the moment that trust is broken with me, it's going to take you a lot to get that back. And you might not ever get that back, especially if you don't have an opportunity to get that back. So I think that's what's really hard when students will walk out on that opportunity. It's like, we haven't been interviewing other people. We haven't been doing that. And you just being like, oh, this job looks a little bit better, pays a little bit more money. That's really hard. So be doing that due diligence in the front end and making that decision, especially an internship, and being honest in the process is key.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Because I could go more, but I want to give other people the opportunity to chat. So do I see a hand? Yes? No? I guess I'll ask another question then. When it comes to people who are looking to leave the Atlanta market, so for example, us students here at Georgia Tech who are looking to leave the Atlanta market, is there a bias when it comes to recruiters to hire within specific markets? So for example, for you guys are here in Atlanta. Is there a bias to hire people who went to school in Atlanta or maybe live in Atlanta?
No, I would say no. My firm has corporate recruiters, so my recruiters don't even sit here in Atlanta. Especially since COVID, we do a lot of work share. We've learned how to do that. So we have a lot of work here in Georgia, and we can't find all the talent we need. And we're actually pulling resources from other states to help meet that need. So right now, my roadway team is pulling design help out of Texas and out of Florida. And we are pulling traffic help out of Nashville, out of Raleigh. So there's a lot more work share that goes on. But like, if you're looking at a bigger firm, the corporate recruiters are going to look to place in multiple offices too. So they might be looking to place across the Southeast. So I don't think there's a bias to local talent.
Absolutely. That I should be careful how I say this. I've done 5 different universities this fall for career fairs. We're up on 20 bulletin boards across the nation. So we're happy to bring in other talent to work hand in hand with the natural pipeline of talent that's coming out of Georgia Tech. We've got a Chicago and a Raleigh office, and so be happy to talk to students from Georgia Tech if they want to explore those offices. We're happy to provide those opportunities. So I think it's a matter of where students are interested in locating themselves based on geography and the opportunity. And I think most firms are willing to work with that if they've got the bandwidth.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Lunch is still being prepared, so you guys have about 15 more minutes of questions. Or if you guys just have something.
Is this okay? Okay. So thank you so much. All of your answers have been super duper helpful, and it's been great learning a little bit more about the industry. I did want to inquire a little bit about the environmental side. As an environmental engineering major student, undergrad student, especially in the industry, we've been getting a lot of focus on kind of the civil aspect and structural and transportation. Within the civil engineering field, how niche would you say is kind of the environmental aspect? For example, environmental sustainability and resilience, does that go into like the particular aspects of a role, or can there be roles within the structural and civil and transportation fields that kind of focus solely on the environmental implications?
I can add a little bit on the transportation side. That's my market, is the green and the resilience clean. We're not seeing right now a lot, but ours is driven by policy and what state and federal guidelines are. So we don't see as much of that. And we're heavily in the roadway and the signals and traffic. But there is an environmental component, which is not necessarily maybe the same environmental component you're asking about. So we have a lot of federal funded projects. So NEPA. So if you're thinking about NEPA, there's a huge need there. So our environmental team for NEPA also requires public involvement, public engagement, public outreach, the NEPA document itself, and then we also have ecologists who do like wetlands delineation, buffer variances, core permits for us, protected species. We also have history. So we have architectural historians who go out and look at different structures and history boundaries, and then archaeology too is a part of the team, and then air and noise. So it's not necessarily the same environmental, I think, that you're asking about, but we do have an environmental component.
I work for a construction company, but I have worked across the country, and I would say be open to the region that you're looking for work. There's some regions within the United States that are a lot more focused in engineering on environmental. So you mentioned wetlands. For example, I lived in New Orleans, and there were environmental engineers just the same as civil engineers or transportation engineers. The same thing for Florida and California. So I would kind of open up your geography that you're looking, and I definitely think the opportunities for sure are there. I just not within construction. There are environmental aspects, but that's all through the civil engineer and their scope of work. So.
So I think you guys gave a lot of great advice. Thank you so much for sharing like what we can do in our careers at this age. But I'm also curious, are there any challenges or something maybe you personally struggle with in your career currently that maybe pertain, will pertain to us maybe 20 years down the line?
Engineers continually learn, right? We are being equipped with skill sets at Georgia Tech to get out and figure out the solution to a given project, a problem, issue. So when something comes to us as a project, we don't know the answer necessarily any more than anyone else. It's a matter of having the skills to be able to figure out what the correct solution is. So what does that mean? Getting that back to your original question, learning, remembering to learn, stay open to fresh ideas, new concepts, structural world. Steel is steel, but it's not the same steel that it was 40 years ago when I was in school. Concrete is changing so quickly, especially in reaction to the sustainable aspects of the material, and how can concrete make itself greener. Analytical processes, tools, software, every day is a new challenge. So you will find yourself taking home journal articles or doing some reading up online every weekend. It's an opportunity to help yourself grow and frankly keep up with, if not get ahead of, some of your compatriots as you're working your way through your career.
I'll add that what I see people struggle with, myself included, as we get, on the later end of our career, is honestly people management. You learn a lot in school and you are working under someone and you're getting that experience, technical experience. But as you grow, hopefully as you want to grow in your career, oftentimes that comes with managing people. And you will learn when you're on that side that sometimes people are very different than you and can be very difficult. And as I think Morgan said, want very different things. And so I think that's a struggle that sometimes I see people when they're 10, 15 years out of school and they really want to make that next big, Christian mentioned leadership, like that big kind of leadership change is like, you can sometimes get further away from the technical side, and maybe that's something that you really love. Maybe you still want to be a leader. You can stay technical, but oftentimes it comes with managing people, and that can be a struggle, and one that is a constant learning process all the time.
I struggle with especially being in a construction company. Let's say the modern technology is awesome, except when it's not. I find email to be a terrible form of communication, except for just providing information. It's a terrible way to have a conversation. Texting is worse. For some reason, Teams, messaging, and Slack, and somebody who's smarter than me can figure out why those seem to flow a little bit differently, those conversations. But as someone who's now in a position of mentoring young both designers and young construction managers, and so we have regular meetings to go over specific projects. What was the problem on the project? What I notice is I want people to have the flexibility, let's say, to work from home, but I notice the communication goes down and what they're getting out of our conversations goes down. So they're not learning as much from our interactions as they are when we spend the time together face to face going it over, because it's a much more of a back and forth. I don't know what the marriage is there between, hey, I'm as big a fan of life balance as everybody. I'm married, my wife and I like to travel. I'm not going to spend all my time working, even though I really enjoy what I do. But there is an impediment at some point for a younger person who's not interacting on a regular basis with the people who can be their mentors. And I'm not really sure what the right answer for me or for society is, but that's something that I'm still trying to figure out.
I think my biggest struggle today would include human beings, people as well. And at all levels, everybody has a different background, purpose, experience, commitment, etc. And I'm pulled in different directions every day as to you may hear the term, we have to manage up. So I'm having to manage up and down, left and right. And I spend a good bit of time in doing so. But it still comes back to what we advised you guys at the beginning: create those relationships, learn how to frankly, we have to deal with people. I got to put on my boots and go out and deal with the guy tying rebar and drilling the piers in the field. I have to deal with a Mallory who's telling me, oh, you're not meeting my design, or the Uzun+Case, or the transportation, or the client, or the team member. So the biggest challenge for sure at my level now, and probably to your point, 15 years in, managing different people, and doing it well enough that everybody can succeed. Right.
I would agree. It's also the people. I would say it's like you said, managing up and down and across, and it's understanding the different styles of the people you're working with and the generational differences also. So learning how the people around you like to communicate so that you can communicate in a way that's impactful for them. And so the way you communicate with different people may look different, and communicating up and managing up is huge. I know that that's a tough one for me. And one of them is sometimes I'm humble. And that you have to sell yourself, you have to sell your team, especially up. If you're not telling above you about all these great things that your team is doing, they may not know. They may not assume that you're doing these wonderful things. But my boss uses this word, it's a made up word. He calls it braggadocious. But that's really what it is making sure you're communicating all these great things that you're doing, that your team is doing, and how successful they are, because it's not just you, but it's your team too. But managing those expectations and working with people. I think people is the biggest part of it, even though we're technical and we're in the weeds and we're in all the details, it's actually the people side of it. And I would also add that everybody gets a performance review, even probably us up here. And those performance reviews have goals. So we all have things and a list of goals that we're working on for growth and development, and those change over the years. But at this level, it's probably all people relationship management goals.
Thank you. Any more questions?
We have more tables. Any tables? Come on, tables. Okay.
So it came up, first of all, thank you guys, and then second of all, it came up a little briefly during the conversation. But with the recent changes made to the PE in Georgia, do you guys have any sort of opinions on the implications it has for the industry? And besides that, what would you guys sort of advise people getting started in their career, how to conduct that, whether to take advantage of it or maybe you prefer the old way of doing things?
So many thoughts and opinions on professional licensing right now. Structural has its own licensing, in particular, special focused license. Sorry, and I have to be careful. One of my engineers writes for the SE exam, and so he's probably cringing right now, and he's not sure why. It's professional licensing is certainly necessary. So it is something to embrace in your career, whatever branch or track you're in. It's a goal. It is not just a feather in your cap, but it is a step along the pathway of your career, and just embrace whatever the requirement is, and put in the effort to figure out how to do it, even though, in my opinion, our particular structural license has just lost its mind right now with the difficulty that it's achieved, that it's set its mark at, rather. And my understanding is that the NCEES, which is the board that administers and grades the exams, they do hear the feedback that is coming from the test takers and from the community, and they are attempting to be responsive. So hopefully it's going to self-correct here shortly.
So on the licensing, I would add, I'm doing a lot of public work. We do very little private work. So we have to write a lot of proposals. That includes resumes of our team. and org charts and things like that. And so a PE is going to show really well there. So it's going to be really hard for you to advance to a more senior position or a leadership position without a PE. A PE does not make you a better engineer, but it makes you look better on paper. But that helps you win work because we have to compete. And like when we do a lot of work with Georgia DOT, they may get 30 proposals. So every little piece that you can get to make your firm look better is going to be important. But we have a certain level that's really hard to promote people beyond that level without a PE. I think it is very important for your career development if you're doing public work, but it doesn't make you a better engineer. On the decoupling side, I don't know if there's a right answer on when to take it. I think it's when you feel like you've mastered the material. I think the EIT you definitely need to take because that's tends to be things you're not going to use in the industry. So the longer you wait, the harder it gets. The PE, I probably wouldn't take the PE right out of school. I would get some experience, and depending on which version you're going to take, you might want some industry experience and make sure you have all that material. And I don't know that there's a right answer there.
I was going to add, how many of you are interested in being firm owners one day? Couple hands. If you are going to own a engineering firm in, I think every state in the country, a 7% of your ownership has to be licensed. It's just a hard rule. So I am not licensed, so I'm capped at my ownership level of the company because I don't hold a license, but my firm is an engineering company. So if that is something that is of interest to you, it probably will be required by your firm, or if you're going to start a firm like by yourself, you're going to have to be licensed. So that's going to be very important if that's something that's on your own personal career path.
Okay, thank you. And that's going to be the end of our Q&A session. Let's give our panelists a round of applause. And we can all head for lunch now, out the doors.